abhito brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ yatīnām yata-cetasām abhito brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām vartate vidita-ātmanām kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ yatīnām yata-cetasām abhito brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ yatīnām yata-cetasām abhito brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ yatīnām yata-cetasām brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ yatīnām yata-cetasām abhito brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām. Kama, from desires, krodha and anger, vimuktānam, of those who are liberated, yatīnām, of the saintly persons, yata-cetasām, who have full control over the mind, abhitaḥ, assured in the near future, brahma-nirvāṇam, liberation in the Supreme, vartate, is there, vidita-ātmanām, of those who are self-realized. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Purport. Translation. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Purport. Of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation, one who is in Kṛṣṇa consciousness is the best of all. The Bhāgavatam 4:22-39 confirms this fact as follows. Yat-pāda-paṅkaja-palāsa vilāsa-bhaktya karma-sayam gratitam-gratayanti santah tadvanna-nikta-rikta-matayo yatayo-piruddha Svato-ganāstangaranam bhaja Vasudevam. Just try to worship in devotional service Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the fruitive results of work is so deep-rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires, despite great endeavors. A devotee of the Lord, constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. Owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he always remains in trance. To cite an analogous example of this, darsana dhyana sansparsai mascha kurma vihangama swani apatyani pusnanti tathahangapi padmaja. By vision, by meditation, and by touch only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, do I also, O Padmaja. The fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in the water. Similarly, the devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly, by engagement in Krishna consciousness. He does not feel the pangs of material miseries. This state of life is called brahma-nirvāṇam, or the absence of material miseries due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-salakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapradantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sritapadakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavansya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Shagana Raghunath Nitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Kṛṣṇa Padam Shagana Lalita Shri Visakha-nitamsa. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanasate Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubheva ca patitānaṁ pāvanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Namo Mahavadanaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Narayan Gaurav Nama. Jai Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ yatīnām yata-cetasām abhito brahma-nirvāṇam vartate vidita-ātmanām. So here in this verse, Lord Kṛṣṇa is summarizing this chapter and speaking about the qualification of one who can attain salvation in near future. So here Lord Kṛṣṇa mentions the qualification for a person who is ready to attain salvation. kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ. So Lord Kṛṣṇa says that one has to become free from material desires. And in material world, we see that the living entities are full of material desires. And everyone is trying to fulfill his material desires in so many different ways. And they are all thinking that they can become happy by fulfilling their material desires. But in this material world, though people are trying to fulfill their material desires in so many different ways, but still they are not happy in this material world. Because the real happiness does not come from fulfilling the material desires. That only increases one's suffering. As it has been stated in Bhagavad Gita, yehi sansparsada bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nate suramate buddha. So here in this material world, the enjoyment coming from yehi sansparsada bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. The enjoyment coming from material sense gratification is the cause of one's suffering in this material world. Because this enjoyment has a beginning and has an end. Adyantavanta kaunteya natesu ramate buddha. And those who are really intelligent, when they think over this, that what is this material enjoyment and how it is the source of all miseries in this material world, So if someone will become very intelligent to think over this, ponder over this, and then he would come to that conclusion that this material enjoyment is always have a beginning and has an end. There is no eternal enjoyment available in this material world. Though as spirit souls, part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, we are all striving for eternal enjoyment. But we don't know how to get that eternal enjoyment. That's why Kṛṣṇa says this is the basic qualification of a person who wants that eternal enjoyment, that he has to become free from these material desires. That's why it said kāma. Kāma means material desire. Kṛṣṇa. Generally we see in material world, when we have so many different material desires, and when the desires are not fulfilled, then anger arises. Dhyayata vishayana punsa sangaste supajayate sangat sanjayate kāma-krodha-vimuktānāṁ. So anger is associated with material desires. So when material desires are not fulfilled, anger will automatically come. And then when anger comes, then there is chain reaction. kāma-krodha-vijayate, krodhat bhavati sammo, sammohat smriti vibhrama. So this illusion, when one is angry, his illusion. His intelligence does not work properly. That's why if someone is striving for salvation, means getting rid of these material miseries eternally and attaining the Supreme, then one has to become free from material desires and anger. This is the basic qualification. And when one can be free from material desires and anger, when he is yatīnām, yata-cetasām. When one will become very saintly. And how one can become a saintly person? Yata-cetasām. When one will control his mind. This mind is the root cause of dragging us here and there, giving us so many alternatives, so many suggestions. Oh, you will become happy by doing this. Oh, no, you will become happy by doing this. So all these things are going on in the mind. And a person who is controlled by the mind, he can never become happy. That's why a saintly person tries to control one's mind through his higher intelligence. And in that way, he controls his material desires and anger. So Kṛṣṇa says, yatīnām, yata-cetasām. And when one can control his mind, when one will understand his position as an eternal servant of Kṛṣṇa. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa starts instruction by telling us that we are not this body. We are the spirit soul, part and parcel of Him. So when one will come to this understanding that this body is temporary, it is subject to birth, death, old age and disease. So, jatasya dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya. Anyone who has taken birth in this material world, he is subject to death. And who is dying? This body is dying. The soul does not die. Soul is the living force within the body, but this body is dying when the soul is leaving the body. And we are all trying to give enjoyment to this body because of our bodily consciousness. And that's how whole suffering begins. But when a person will realize that he is not this body, he is the spirit soul, and his eternal occupation is to serve the Supreme, then only one can be free from this material entanglement and free from these bodily miseries. So, Lord Kṛṣṇa says that one has to become self-realized. Means one has to understand the self, that he is part and parcel of the Supreme, he is the spirit soul, different from the body. And when in Srimad Bhāgavatam we see, when the sages ask Sutta Goswami, how Atma prasidati, how the spirit soul will become happy. Now we are thinking how this body will become happy. But when we realize that we are not this body, we are the spirit soul, then how the spirit soul become happy? Savai punsa paro dharma yato bhakti adhokya. Ahetuki apratihata yatma suprasidati. The spirit soul will only become happy when one will perform devotional service to Kṛṣṇa. That is the supreme dharma, supreme religion, paro dharma. And that supreme dharma, that devotion to Lord Hari should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. Because even if we perform devotional service, we have some sort of motivation. We have some desires to be fulfilled. That's why we see many people, they come to the temple with material desires. Either they go to different demigods, or even if they come to Kṛṣṇa, they come with different desires. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa said that arti arthati jigyasu, jnani. These four types of people, they come to him. One who is in distress, one who is in need of money, and one who is inquisitive, and one who is in knowledge. Chaturvidha bhajante man jana sukruti norjana arti arthati jigyasu jnani cha varatarsana. So generally people come with some material desires to be fulfilled. And when that material desires are not fulfilled, then they give up bhakti. That's why this real bhakti should be unmotivated, without any material desires. And when one surrenders to Kṛṣṇa and leaves everything on Kṛṣṇa, okay, let Kṛṣṇa do whatever he likes. My duty is to serve him, then it is up to Kṛṣṇa. If he wants to fulfill my requirements, that is up to him. If he does not, then that is also up to him. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Sikshastaka, he prayed to Kṛṣṇa. That is the last verse of Sikshastaka. Aslisya vāpādaratang nastumam adarsanam marmahatam karodhuma. Yata-cetasām va vididātu lampato mat prananathastu sayeva nāma. Whether you embrace me or you kick me, that is up to you. You are always my prananath. You are always my Lord of my heart. That kind of surrender the Lord wants. So when a devotee is surrendered to Kṛṣṇa and leaves everything on Kṛṣṇa, dependent on Kṛṣṇa, and always thinking about Kṛṣṇa, then naturally the Lord will take care of that devotee. So here we see Srila Prabhupada states in the Purport. He gives a nice example. Darsana dhyana sansparsai masya kurma vihangama Swami apatyani pusnanti tathaham api padmaja. So the Lord says to Brahma that, my dear Brahma, as masya kurma vihangama. Masya means fish. Kurma, tortoise, and vihangama means birds. So they bring up their offspring in different ways. The fish brings up its offspring just by darshan, just by seeing. And just by seeing, the offspring grows. In the same way, tortoise, it brings up its offspring just by meditation. The tortoise lays eggs on the land and stays in the water, and from the water it meditates on the egg. And then from the egg the child comes out. And then it says Bihangama, and these birds, they also lay eggs, and Sparsha, they always cover the egg with their wings. And in that way they bring out the child from the egg. So Sparsha. So there are different modes of bringing out their offspring. So Lord Kṛṣṇa says to Brahma that as these three types of creatures, they bring up their offspring, I also do the same thing with my devotees. Because the devotees of the Lord, those who have no material desires, the qualification is already given. A devotee should be free from material desires. And when we are free from material desires, then naturally we will be free from anger. And we can be able to control our minds. Because these material desires are distracting our mind in so many ways. Even if we try to chant our japa, try to meditate on the Supreme Lord, but because we have so many material desires, so at the time of japa, all those things will come to our mind. And it is disturbing. We cannot meditate on the Supreme Lord. We cannot chant our rounds properly with concentration. So when one is free from material desires, he becomes very peaceful. And it is very easy for him to control his mind. And when the mind is controlled, then it is very easy to think of Kṛṣṇa. Because in Bhagavad Gita, Kṛṣṇa is repeating this again and again. That manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. Kṛṣṇa is telling that always think of me. Manmana, matmana, manmana. You always give your mind to me. Means think of me. Because in the mind always thinking, feeling, willing, these three things are going on. Always we are thinking of something. Mind cannot stay without thinking. Either we have to think of material things or we have to think of Kṛṣṇa. So we cannot make our mind free. So when the mind is thinking about Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa says this thing, that you always think of me. Manmana. Give your mind to me. Manmana bhava mad bhakta. And when you will give your mind to me, you become my devotee, naturally. You always think of me, you will like to hear about me, you will like to serve me. So all these things will follow. That's why Kṛṣṇa says, you always think of me to become my devotee, and madhyaji, you worship me. Mam namaskuru, you offer your obeisances to me. And by doing this, Kṛṣṇa is promising that I am promising you, if you do this, then at last you will come to me. So this is very simple thing Kṛṣṇa is telling us. And we cannot do the simple thing. Kṛṣṇa is giving such a simple way how to go to Kṛṣṇa, how to attain Kṛṣṇa. But it is so difficult for us to do this thing. Think of Kṛṣṇa. It is not very difficult thing, but it becomes difficult because we have so many material desires. And because of our material desires, we are unable to think of Kṛṣṇa all the time. And even if we think of Kṛṣṇa, very short moment, then these material desires, material thoughts overcome our mind. That's why it is very essential to be free from material desires and control the mind. And when mind is controlled, it is very easy to think of Kṛṣṇa. So, here it said, abhito brahma-nirvāṇaṁ vartate vidita-ātmanām. So when one is thus free from material desires, and it is very difficult in this material world to become free from material desires. So, if we hear again and again about Kṛṣṇa, our bhakti starts from hearing. Śravanam, kirtanam Vishnu, smaranam padasevanam, archanam bandhanam dasya, sakhya atma nivedanam. So, the more we hear about Kṛṣṇa, then naturally we will glorify Kṛṣṇa, we will chant the name of Kṛṣṇa, and it will be easier for us to think of Kṛṣṇa. So when Kṛṣṇa says, I take care of my devotees as these three types of creatures take care of their offsprings. That means when a devotee thinks about Kṛṣṇa, then naturally Kṛṣṇa also thinks about his devotee. This is reciprocating. Kṛṣṇa reciprocates. So when devotee thinks about Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa also thinks about his devotee. So, Lord Kṛṣṇa even says that as I am within the heart of my devotees, because when the devotee thinks about Kṛṣṇa, he keeps Kṛṣṇa within his heart. Then Lord Kṛṣṇa says, I also keep my devotees within my heart. Bhaktānaṁ hridayetu aham. So, I also, as I am in the heart of my devotees are also within my heart. That means Lord Kṛṣṇa takes care of his devotee. He thinks about his devotee. So in this verse, that's why Lord Kṛṣṇa says to Brahma that I also take care of my devotees in the same way these three creatures take care of their offspring. That means these devotees are Kṛṣṇa's nija jana, his own people. Though the whole world is Kṛṣṇa's creation, and Kṛṣṇa is samaham sarvabhutesu name desasti na priya. Kṛṣṇa is equal to everyone. But he is specially inclined towards his devotees. Because the devotees, they have given up everything, all material enjoyment, all the material desires, and they have only desired to get Kṛṣṇa's association by serving him. That's why Kṛṣṇa becomes indebted towards his devotees. And such devotees, naturally, when they develop this kind of attitude, then naturally they will attain Kṛṣṇa very easily. In this material world, people, they are doing different activities because of they have so many material desires. And sometimes they say that, oh, I am doing karma. And sometimes they accuse devotees that they are not doing karma. So they think to fulfill the material desires or material needs is actually karma. But here Kṛṣṇa speaks about karma yoga. Because when karma will be united with Kṛṣṇa, that becomes karma yoga. The devotees are doing karma yoga. The karmis, those who are not devotees, they may be doing karma, just activities, those who are material activities. But they are not doing karma yoga. And in Bhagavad Gita, Kṛṣṇa is teaching about karma yoga. How we can be united with Kṛṣṇa through our karma. He speaks about jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga. So that means how we can be united with Kṛṣṇa with karma, jnana, bhakti, dhyana. So the whole purpose is sansiddhi haritosanam. The whole purpose is to satisfy Lord Hari. So we can satisfy Lord Hari through our prescribed duties, like in Varnashrama. In Varnashrama, the goal is to satisfy Lord Hari. So people may be doing their material duties, but the goal should be to satisfy Lord Hari. They have to give up the results to the Supreme Lord. And in that way they can develop detachment. When it is said that one should give up the fruits of his actions to the Supreme Lord, that means he will develop detachment from the fruits of his actions. So in this way, one can gradually come to the stage when one can fully dedicate one's life for the Supreme Lord. So here in this verse purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the more we think about the Supreme Lord and His Supreme Abode, though it is far away from us, the Lord seems far away from us, His abode seems far away from us, but by constant thinking about the Supreme Lord and His abode, eventually we will attain that Supreme Abode and attain that Supreme Lord. So that is the purport of this verse, that how we can attain the Supreme Lord just by thinking about Him. And when we think about Kṛṣṇa, naturally our attachment will develop for Him. If we think about material things, our attachment will develop about material things. If we think about Kṛṣṇa, our attachment will develop for Kṛṣṇa. So if we think of Kṛṣṇa's beautiful form, if we think of Kṛṣṇa's beautiful abode, Golok Vrindavan, how beautiful it is, how nice it is, and how enjoyable it is, and how so many devotees are serving Kṛṣṇa in Golok Vrindavan, and they are enjoying life eternally, then naturally we will be attracted towards the Supreme Lord and His Supreme Abode. And it will be easier for us to attain that Supreme Abode in near future. That's why Kṛṣṇa in this verse speaks about the qualification of a person who can attain that Supreme Abode in near future. So we'll stop here. If anyone has any questions or comments, we can discuss. Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Jai Sri Kṛṣṇa Balram ki, Jai Sri Radha Shyam Sundar Tarisadevi ki, Jai Sri Gaurav Nitai ki, Jai Sri Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki, Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Pramanande.